Top of funnel is so easy for us.
Exactly. With vertical AI, it's that last mile problem. It's this deployment model that the last 10% is the 90% of the work. Like all these cliches I can throw at you.
This is where the market's going to be won or lost. Our product, I feel bulletproof confidence in our team and what we can do right now. I think we've already got, as validated by our recent Series C, like we've already got $1 billion product. If I have an interview with someone and they don't send a thank you note, I'm out.
996, baby.
Yeah.
That's what's funny. Everyone asks me, or like our firm, they'll be saying, is the 996 real? I'm like, what do you care? It means you're getting a ton of deals. Glad to know that consultants make some of the best sellers.
Hey.
Former consultants that go into sales. I think we need more of them. So
MEDDICC is not a sales process. When Salesforce says real time, they really mean 48 hours. When we say real time, we mean actually real time and things like that.
Let's talk about Snowflake, because I just read Make It Snow, the book by Chris Degnan. So what about their sales team do you admire?
I actually just got to meet Chris Degnan for the first time.
Oh, nice.
He was like the coolest guy.
Tell him to answer my email. I sent him, I'm trying to get him on the Vibe Scaling podcast.
Well, look, I mean,
maybe he's making me work for it. He's like, all right, if I'm going to be on a sales podcast, I'm going to make him send like 4 thoughtful, non-AI slopped emails. But anyway.
First of all, I think there's this like weird false tension between PLG and...
Well, you know what the tension is that top-down sellers are mad that PLG sellers get a ton of inbound and it's way easier. PLG people think that enterprise sellers are too salesy and enterprise sellers think that PLG sellers have it too easy.
Yes. Whenever I'm looking to join a company, I look at 3 things. I look at...
Thanks for tuning in to the Vibe Scaling podcast. My name is Chris Balestris, partner at Vibe Scaling. We're a go-to-market advisory, recruiting, investing, and media firm, helping seed through Series D companies grow. Vibe Scaling podcast is an intersection of go-to-market, AI, and startup topics where we interview the top go-to-market leaders at AI and SaaS companies. Hope you enjoy it. Just had a great episode with SVP of Revenue at Legora, Pat Forquer. Pat's background started out of the global financial crisis, starting at Intralinks, made his way to Accenture, and then did a 180 into tech sales, starting at Braze, where he had a great 7-year run from AE through SVP of Sales at Braze. From there, CRO at Jacquard. While at Jacquard, did a demo of Legora, knew it was going to change the way the legal profession does work, and joined as the VP of Sales and now the SVP of Revenue a year later, coming off a large Series C raise. Legora, one of the big players in that AI native legal tech space. In the conversation, we talk a little bit more about his background. We also talk about how selling vertical AI is different than what we've seen, how deals are getting done a lot faster. And with that, you have to adjust the way that you structure your deal process. We talked some basketball, how he met his wife in Montauk, and really enjoyed this one with Pat, and I hope you do as well. I was like, all right, I'm having Pat on. I got to do some. So we went down the Google rabbit hole, saw you and your wife met in Montauk, which... For those before they think that I'm like the bougie guy who just found out about Montauk 5 years ago, I'm from Suffolk County, New York.
Yep.
My dad loves fishing, so we grew up catching fluke and stripers out there. That was like our family trip every year.
Yeah.
And then, right as you start coming to the city as an Atlanta guy, it starts to become, the hot spot with the opening of the surf lodge and everything. But you met your wife there. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the takeaway from me meeting my wife in Montauk is that you truly can find love in a hopeless place. I don't know if folks have been to Memory Motel, but it's pretty grungy, standing water on the floor. Classic meeting at the bar, got her number, and then, next thing you know, 2 kids living in Brooklyn.
Of course, yeah. And I heard you were mad this last week because Bill Ackman was giving away your secrets. You had asked her, may I meet you?
May I meet you?
Yeah. And you were one of the first people to pieneer that pickup line.
Yeah.
Now Bill Ackman kind of got wind of it, and he took all your thunder. So.
I know. I was a little jealous of that take.
Yeah.
The hedge fund guys, they seem to know everything.
Yes,
so
totally. Yeah. Great to have you sitting down here, and really excited to dive into your background. So for those that right now, SVP of Revenue at Legora, but why don't you tell the folks listening a little bit more about Pat and your background?
Yeah, so I grew up in Atlanta originally, huge sports fan, went to college at Duke, had I think it's actually positive. I graduated in 2008, and coming to New York at the time,
tough job market,
tough time. I thought I was going to come here and work at a marketing agency, and then next thing you know, I got the only job I could really get at the time was I was a BDR at the very early days of Yext. And then from there, had some mentors take me under their wing, and went on to work at Intralinks, data room provider for 5 years, went over to a company called Cloud Sherpas, where I was managing our Google Cloud relationship in New York at the sort of the advent of the whole like cloud era, cloud boom. We were acquired by Accenture like right after I started, and then spent some time doing change management, cloud sort of lift and shift work at Accenture. Got introduced to a company called AppBoy based here in New York, and that was a huge break in my career, getting to work, which became Braze, and so started from the early days of AppBoy. We were small in an office, actually not too far from here on 39th Street, and had the opportunity to come there from sort of early stage through post IPO. Was there for 7 years. And left as I was running our global accounts team, which was awesome experience working at Braze. I then followed my CRO from Braze, went on to be CEO of a sort of early generative AI company called Jacquard that I was CRO for a bit, and then got connected with Max and the team here at Legora, and have been here since the beginning of the year, and it's been a ton of fun.
That's awesome. We'll dive into some of that progression, but I think like you have quite the unique background with selling. So it was at Intralinks, it was then more on the consulting side of things, and then you went into software and now in AI. Or at least SaaS and then AI.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more, this first pillar, when we were chatting, it was how this has evolved, like selling SaaS versus AI. Like tell us a little bit more about how you see the differences from maybe your time at Braze into now.
I think firstly, it's the best time to be a seller. It's super fun because the technology is so good now. I mean, going back to my days at Intralinks, I mean, no shade, but we would have outages for like really long periods of time, and like it was pre-cloud, pre all the infrastructure as a service stuff that we have now. And the software was like really limited in what it could do. And most SaaS companies back in the late aughts, early 2010s, is basically taking Excel and putting it on cloud and sort of automating some part of some process that was, if it was an Excel or Word-based thing that relied on email and humans, they would take that and put it into a cloud application layer. And so during that time, I think a lot of the sales process that was being taught was more around, more playbook based. And it was pretty rigid. So you had to set up discovery.
What are some of those playbooks that come to mind that were like good practice in like 2010,
Yeah, the popular ones at the time were like spin selling and things like that. I did a bunch of training with force management, which was actually awesome and really helpful because it helps you focus on outcomes and selling solutions and being a good partner, as opposed to doing more sort of coin-based operator. I saw your post on the Coinbase seller.
The best reps are not coin operated.
Correct.
It's like that screenshot of the sales learning curve from Harvard Business Review.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of the old school mentality around hardware into the early days of SaaS was that coin-based or coin-operated rep, right? They wanted everyone to look the same, act the same, say the same stuff, and do the exact same thing every time. And I think at the time that was highly effective, and there's PTC and some other companies that had a ton of success sort of doing that. But I think what's changed with AI is that because the software is so dynamic, and it offers such a wide range of solutions and outcomes that you can deliver, even if you're taking an outcome-based view with your customers, how you do that in the product is very different. So it's not just traditional SaaS. You've got sort of the sidebar. If you think about like email, it's like you got your inbox, your outbox, drafts, whatever, and then there's some stuff across the top, and then there's sort of the UX interface. Mm-hmm. With AI, everything's very prompt-based. It's very configurable in how you do things. Like there's workflows that can be built in one way or another way. So it's a really fun time because you can come with a value-led or sort of outcome-based strategy and get there in 5 different ways. Whereas in the sort of early SaaS era and a lot of the way software worked up through the early 2010s is, there's only one way to do things, and there's no real workarounds, and there's no real like solutioning, right? So with AI products and like with Legora is the best product I've ever worked for. And when I met Max in a coffee shop,
you were telling me this story. It's like you wanted to join. You weren't even you're looking.
I wasn't. Like I had coffee with Max. He showed me this product we have called Tabular Review, and I just was like, holy shit, like I've never seen that before. Yeah. And what we're able to do, how fast we're able to ship, the complexity of problems we're able to solve is going up and up and up. And it's sort of on the complexity curve of outcomes, we're starting and we can automate a lot of tasks within like the legal framework today. But if you look forward 12, 24 months, the complexity of the tasks that we're going to be able to do is just only going to increase as the models get better and as our architecture sort of gets more complex and more advanced. So it's really exciting. And so what I mean by that in terms of playbook based versus more, yet it's sort of a choose your own adventure these days. So you're starting from the same base layer of like, still have to prepare, still have to have really good discovery questions, still have to have a point of view on what's important to your buyer, build all those relationships, all those sort of political dynamics, all that stuff's the same, but how you do it better than, and let me prove it to you in the metrics, all of that stuff is way more fluid. And so you have to be much more audible ready than you may have had to be previously because there was only one way to do it.
Yeah. I want to dive into we're going to have a whole, I want to chat a little bit more of this vertical AI, how that differs from a deployment perspective, the pros and cons around that. You said something there of force management. Now I'm somebody in the 3 companies that I was at over 7 years as an enterprise seller, I never got force management training. Yeah. It is consistently being told throughout my career as that is like the thing I learned the most from. What about it specifically, and why do so many people recommend that for sales teams?
Yeah, so force management for me, honestly, was such a huge impact on my career. And there's a guy there named Brian Walsh, who's this like famous sales trainer, has a great podcast on sort of sales tactics as well. But
not as good as Vibes.
Not as good as Vibes. Completely different audience. But it's a framework, right? They call it command of the message framework.
Right. It's like part. Okay. Got it.
And so what it encourages you to do is to approach every conversation what they call the value-based conversation. So what you're looking at is sort of like current state, negative consequences, future state, positive business outcomes, and this is how we're going to get you there, how we're going to measure success. This is how we do it. This is how we do it better than the competition. And don't just believe me. Here's the proof points. So if you're able to frame each meeting that you have, each deal that you have in that context, it just helps you strategically think about what you should be doing, the questions you should be asking, in addition to all the sort of like ninja stuff you have to do around getting to power and all that stuff. So for me, it's not a process as much as it is like a framework for looking at conversations with businesses.
Yeah.
And the thing that I take away from that most, like take to heart, and I think about it every day, talk to my teams about it every day, is if you're approaching a situation, a meeting with a client, whether it's a sales meeting, customer success, post-sales, whatever, and you're coming with a positive business intent, like I'm coming here to help you solve a problem, and you genuinely believe that, you genuinely prepare that way, and you're coming with that sort of intention in mind, that for me was something that was a huge shift in behavior where you're going from just trying to close it, like as a young seller, just trying to figure it out, close a deal. It's so hard. Sales is such a hard job. But acting with that intentionality and with that framework really, really helped me a lot.
I want to challenge that a little bit though, because I took an intro call in my last company with force management, and they were like, yeah, that'll be $150K for what I thought was like, I think I've gotten this training before. Yeah. It reminded me back in my consulting days of the memes I would always get of like the McKinsey consultant that comes in driving a Lamborghini, telling you to increase revenue and decrease costs. It's like, no shit. What's like one thing that like, why force management over? Because if I was to take a sales call with somebody selling some of these other training solutions, I feel like it would sound very similar to what you just, is there anything specifically that like, hey, I've actually tried some of these other training programs and this cuts through the noise? Like, is it like a acronym that they use that makes it easy? Like what about it, I guess, even more tactically that you think is like why everybody says it's that good?
Yeah, I mean, look, I haven't tried everything, so there may be other stuff out there that's good. I have my fairly limited perspective there, but what I think they do a great job of is, a lot of the stuff. I did take spin selling at Intralinks. I took some other things. I forget I've taken other sales training courses, whether that's an individual or a company. And I've learned things from all of them. Like I took a great negotiation training when I was at Braze and some other places. But force management has a great sort of pedagogy, like coursework. And so they have a way in which
it's pretty structured. Like you actually take structured. Like okay.
And they're very strict about like no phones, no calls. Like, you know how it is being a seller. You go do, your internal enablement on a new product feature.
Yeah.
Half the people are not paying attention. It doesn't,
It's intense in a good way.
Yeah. But the way they set it up, they do a bunch of pre-read with customers and prospects, the executives and goals, and the way they deliver the content. I think it has more to do with the staying power of like the enablement aspect of it and people being able to internalize it and actually spend time to learn, as opposed to just doing something more sort of half-assed, which I've done also at other, with other enablements where it like hasn't gotten as much out of it. I think how they do it is the difference.
Yeah, that sounds way more intense in a good way than like anything I've gotten. That's why I'm jealous as somebody who never actually got force management.
Yeah, it is expensive.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something that I'm actually really interested in pivoting to. So Legora, one of the leading AI for professional services, specifically for law firms. Maybe tell us a little bit more of what you guys do at Legora. And then I, as a former strategy consultant, want to dive in to how it's different selling to professional services buyers than your typical like CTO or CMO or like business buyer.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And there's I've had a lot of learnings this year, and I'm sure I'll continue to learn more. So Legora is a collaborative AI platform for lawyers. We focus predominantly on sort of 4 different aspects of legal work right now. So we, first and foremost, meet your customers where they are. We have a Word app that you download directly into your Word environment. So you've got
classic Microsoft Office.
Yeah. So it's like
on a Lenovo ThinkPad.
Where do the lawyers spend all their time? They're in Word.
They're on a Lenovo ThinkPad that doesn't work.
Yes.
In Microsoft Suite that also doesn't really work.
They're on a 15-year-old Lenovo cranking out Microsoft 10. And we actually just released,
ripping through please fixes on documents.
Yeah, please fix.
Yeah.
Wrong state. We just released a Outlook app as well.
Got it.
And so from the Word application, you can do things like Playbook-based redlining, create templates, fill in templates, anonymize the documents, translate documents. We do full form translation. We have DeepL on our back end, so you can translate to or from pretty much any major language directly in the Word environment. You can compare documents, create a redline from a term sheet to an SPA as an example, redline off of precedent. You can also do red lines off of comments is a really popular one from an associate perspective. You get the doc from from the partner, and they just have the basic comments in the comment bubble and just say make a red line off these comments. It actually does a great job of that. We reduce document review time in those examples by about 90%. So in terms of revenue acceleration for M&A deals, for fundraising, for any type of capital projects, big impact that also is really popular with in-house teams who are doing MSAs or employment agreements or those sort of more playbook-based reviews. In the web app, there's some really exciting functionality. I talked about the tabular review. So if staying on the M&A front, or if you're in e-discovery with litigation, you can dump all of the diligence documents, all the litigation documents into a tabular review. The rows just populate as documents. The columns populate as what you want to know, the query. So it could be something as basic as the parties, the termination, does it have termination for convenience? Does it have, this term? How much is the agreement for? What's the start date? What's the end date? You can do like a full M&A due diligence of a data room in a couple minutes, just plugging in all of the sort of questions that you want to know, and then you can create a playbook that you can use over and over again. Yeah. So it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back to when you joined Legora, though. You had said a light bulb moment went off, and a similar one went off for me when I accepted my job at Oliver Wyman a month before ChatGPT launches.
Yeah.
My entire time I'm there, after it was launched, I was like, this job is going to completely change. And a light bulb moment went off for me. Sounds like you had a similar sort of, but you've never been a lawyer before. At least I was seeing it in like real. So I'm really curious of what went off for you that was like, this is going to change it without you have actually being one before. Like, I'm curious.
Definitely not a lawyer, but I have like worked with law firms, sold to law firms before, definitely at Intralinks and other places. And the light bulb moment for me was seeing the Legora product, but also listening to Max talk about how we're going to enable collaboration between law firms and their customers.
Yeah, can I actually push you on that though?
Yeah.
Because in the markets that are worth being an operator in, compete, like they're just a ton of competition. I think if you were to pull a lot of the other similar tools that are out there, they might say something similar though, right? Like what about actually Legora stood out? It's not like it's a great product. I've heard awesome things about it, but what else other than, because I bet if you were to ask, like I said, the others, they might say something similar. So
Yeah, well, whenever I'm looking to join a company, I look at three things. I look at, who am I working for? Like who's the executive team? And I would say with Max and Sige, our co-founders, I met Max at a coffee shop in New York, like I said, and you meet him and you just know like he's got it.
you just have that feeling.
And
You've seen that motion a couple of times.
I was
going
to say, one of the things of working at Braze that was so impactful for me is, Bill and John, the co-founders of Braze. You meet those guys and you're like, this is the smartest guy I've ever fucking met in my life. Like, they have that sort of electric energy, the vision, and it just like cuts different than like anyone else you talk to that day. So being able to see that up close and personal for 7 years at Braze and seeing Bill and John operate, like the best guys, two of the smartest, hardest working guys you can imagine, and like seeing what good looks like. And then, look, I can tell you, I'm 40 years old. I live in Brooklyn. I've got 2 kids. And when you tell your wife that you're going to work for a 25-year-old kid in Stockholm, you're going to get some questions.
Yeah.
And but I just knew, like, you meet him. Max is the kind of guy you meet. You hear his version of the vision, and then you see what he and Sige had built.
Yeah.
In the product, and the product matched the vision, and the energy matched sort of my energy, and we hit it off immediately. So that for me was like the first thing. Was Max, I think, is a visionary leader. He's a super young guy, but also so smart, so driven, so hardworking, and has built an amazing culture in such a short amount of time. I've been beyond impressed with him as an individual. And then the market, yeah, I'm definitely not a lawyer. Didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but
is that where they're putting up lawyer? My wife's a lawyer. She doesn't travel much for it, but I always envisioned if we did travel together, we wouldn't be staying at I didn't know that.
They're really, no, like that's where Legora stays.
Yeah,
the lawyers stay the Four Seasons or wherever. But the market, you can just, again, with Tableau Review, with our workflows functionality, with some of the legal research that we can do, and seeing the word application, when you see it all together and you think about the roadmap, it doesn't, you can just sort of see how big of an impact this stuff is going to have. And then when you go talk to it, and then what I did during my diligence was, I met Max. I was really excited about the product and the company. But then you go talk to actual attorneys, and my father-in-law. I talked to friends and
family.
So
you're interviewing potential users to see,
go talk to anyone, and you talk to them about any of these use cases across any practice area, and they are all so aware of the impact that these tools can have. And yeah, there's a ton of money and a ton of interest in legal tech these days. But I mean, look, relative to MarTech, I'll tell you, like, still not that many players, and there's some really exciting stuff happening, but we're just in the first pitch or the first inning of this stuff, and we're in it to win it for the long term. But when you go talk to attorneys and talk about the ways that they're using AI or where they see that you could, that's what like sort of validated our thesis and what we were going to be building, as opposed to some of the other options.
It's unique in professional services. What's the combo of, like, when you think of a TAM? So you're second. So if I'm hearing you, the way you choose an opportunity, founders, and you went pretty deep on that market. I want to go a little bit deeper on this, because for folks that are listening, we run a recruiting firm.
Yep.
And we're always giving advice of like how to choose that company. And market's a big one.
Yep.
Obviously, like TAM, as a seller, you want something that there's going to be a lot of that opportunity for you for multiple years. But in professional services, what's the combination of a back of the napkin, how many lawyers, how much this might cost, versus like the software actually eating the work and it continuing to grow? Meaning, like, you won't need as many associates. You'll supercharge the current ones, but we can actually take on a lot. Is that sort of the value analysis? Maybe not right now, but that these professional services firms like Legora are thinking of? Is that like part of the TAM?
Well, I think it's two parts. So if you look at the existing sort of legal tech TAM, it's still a huge market.
Right.
And still there's plenty to run out there. And, when I was working at Intralinks, going back to, the early 2010s, selling to law firms, they were using 3 tools. They were using email, Word, and some sort of document management system. And then I went away, did a bunch of different things, like you said, came back all these years later. Guess what? They're still using the same tools.
Yeah.
So even in just like a rudimentary analysis, maybe there's some e-discovery tools that have sort of come into the mix recently, but there's such an underdeveloped sort of like technical muscle within legal work, because the tools haven't been there. And I think with LLMs and the development of LLMs has given us the opportunity to actually deliver value and outcomes in a way that's meaningful. So I think the sort of legal tech market by itself is big and underpenetrated, and you don't see until the last few years, you don't see the big blue chip VCs like really going after that space, because the outcomes weren't there. So I think that the opportunities that LLMs present like give you that sort of like that market, I think will get bigger, and it's already big. And then on the services side, yeah, there's going to be incremental impact on the services market moving over to a technology market. You're already seeing that. What that looks like and what parts of the market go where, I'm not smart enough to make those predictions, but it's definitely already happening. And if you look at, we have an agentic workflow builder within Legora where you can give our sort of reasoning agent access to different tools within the environment, and it can do very complex multi-step legal work in minutes of things that if you talk to attorneys, things that would have previously either been not possible or so time consuming that they wouldn't have done them because no one would pay for the amount of time that it would have needed to take, right? So I think the interesting thing for me on the professional services side is when people talk about vertical AI, they mostly think about it on a look back basis, meaning, oh, I did this process. It used to take me 30 hours, and now I do it with AI, and it takes me 2 hours or whatever. And that's great. And that's part of the ROI that we sort of deliver to firms and to our corporate clients. But the more interesting thing to us is, and actually Packy McCormick has a great article on this, but as you commoditize more inputs into work products, like those work products have an opportunity to get further elevated and move up the value chain.
Yeah.
So things like legal research, like my father-in-law is a tort lawyer. He tells me these, and when I was talking to him about joining Legora, he was like, oh, well, when I was coming out of law school and we're doing legal research, I'm literally going to a law library, spending hours or having someone from his team do it, going to a physical law library, and then those got digitized, moved online, and that's like Lexis and Westlaw, right? And then you think about email, going from letters to email. You think about going from physical due diligence with banker boxes to virtual data rooms. Work product in the legal context has gotten commoditized many times over a long period of time. And law firms have done great, lawyers have done great as a result. The market will only get bigger as deals get faster. Maybe the commercial model changes. I'm not in a position to tell people how to price their work. And certainly if you're billing hourly and things are taking less time, maybe you could look at how you do things differently. But at the end of the day, I think it's net accretive to professional services and legal services. How it looks and who the winners and losers are, we're not sure. But the fun part of like my job right now is we get to partner with some of the best firms in the world as they figure it out.
So on that point, as you guys are figuring out, you get a certain land. So you finally get them bought in. I was going to ask you, I think some of my prep was, how is it selling to professional services? My thought is there's a lot of people in market. People are willing to like give this a trial.
Yeah.
Hey, let's test it out. So I don't even want to focus there for this conversation because I'm thinking like, at this point, maybe a year ago, we could have had that convo. Yeah. Everybody's like, hey, I think we need to test this or else.
Top of funnel is so easy for us.
Exactly. Yeah, so let's talk about like the way that you think through the year one land into providing value with that. My understanding is with vertical AI, it's that last mile problem. It's this deployment model that the last 10% is the 90% of the work, like all these cliches I can throw at you. How is that unique from, you said earlier, there's flexibility with that, with the new way of selling. But it probably posed a little bit of more of a challenge when you have to like actually get in the weeds and make sure. But so tell us more about that, of how that's unique to vertical AI.
And I think that this is where the market's going to be won or lost. Like our product, I feel bulletproof confidence in our team and what we can do right now. I think we've already got, as validated by our recent Series C, like we've already got $1 billion product. But the question is, for the next step and for the next 10 steps, is change management. It all comes down to change management because things within professional services context, legal services specifically, things have been getting done the same way for a really long time.
And is an AE owning this? Like, what is okay, so I'm an AE, I come in, I get hired at Legora, I got all this inbound, top of funnel you said was taken care of. I'm closing these deals. Am I working with them on the upsell too, alongside with that? Like, how do you guys work that model for the AEs for the land and expand?
So it's definitely a team effort.
Okay.
So AEs are a big part of this, and our go-to-market folks are elite, super smart, hardworking, oftentimes either coming from complex solution selling backgrounds or from consulting backgrounds, because you need to understand sort of the people process technology triumvirate just as well as you understand sort of any baseline sort of like selling tactics, like discovery tactics and other
Plus
things.
they can sell to a fellow professional services buyer. I think
Yes.
sometimes you can there's the way that they carry themselves and all that.
Yeah, we have a lot of folks from BCG, McKinsey, and so on, and we've been super successful sourcing folks from that part of the market. But to your question, it's definitely a team effort.
Yeah,
and so the GTMs have to go and do a really good job of discovery, power alignment, who's got juice, and the fun thing about law firms is they're not a traditional corporate structure. And they don't have a traditional sort of corporate.
How does that differ if you have a partnership? Yeah, how does that buying process differ from like, we have a C-suite with procurement, like what? Yeah.
It's very interesting because different firms, every firm do things differently. And there's innovation teams that some firms have a lot of power, some firms don't, some firms they don't. There's a knowledge.
Oh, interesting. I thought that if you just had like an AI coalition, it's like, all right, that's our center of excellence, so we need to get into. Okay.
And then sometimes there's an AI, more often than not, there's some sort of AI committee that's mostly composed of partners from the firm who may have varying degrees of interest in AI or aptitude for it. Some are very interested and really want to lean in. Some are just sort of there because they want to learn a little bit so that they can have some answers when clients ask them what they're doing with AI.
Right.
So we see a really broad distribution, and the fun part is, like I said, because yes, it's a partnership. So then you're looking at like finding where the power, like access to power. If you're looking at like the BANT framework, it's like the authority bit. Because it could just be one person, it could be 3 people, it could be 10 people. It's decision by committee, but who on the committee actually really cares? And some people are going to set the tone, and some people are going to follow whatever these other people say. So it's very fun to go like figure, as a seller, it's very fun to go figure that out and figure out, okay, we're going to go pitch to the AI committee of XYZ firm. There's 3 people, there's 5 people, there's 10 people. Under the dynamics between those people, decision-making process, it's all very different. And it's definitely not something that's super repeatable every deal where you have a deep understanding of the exact same process at every firm.
How do you, you've hired a bunch of people at Braze, Jacquard, and then now you're doing this at Legora, and it's a little bit, sounds like the sales process is a little bit different. You had said, solution sellers, but then also potentially consultants. What are you looking for in your hiring process to see if they're flexible?
Yeah, so I think organization and just motor and energy are 2 of the biggest things I look for.
How do you test for that?
It's really hard to test.
Give me some tactical things that you've either done in the past in an interview process that's like, okay, or maybe things that they don't do that give you pause.
Well, if I have an interview with someone and they don't send a thank you note, I'm out.
I wrote an article on this of 7 things that we're seeing top go-to-market folks do in interviews. And yeah, you would think, I send that sometimes and people read it and they're like, dude, no shit, I do all these things. I'm like, you'd be surprised. That not many. I mean, what % of people do you think don't send a follow-up still?
Over 50%.
It's that high. No 50%. Way. That's insane to me.
Definitely. It's insane. And it's an easzy no.
Yeah, because then your thought is like,
you're
that's
how they're going to treat
you interview
their
like you sell sort of thing. Yeah.
So, I mean, a couple of things. We also have a really robust case in the interview process.
How do you
we give a situation, we give access to Legora, they have to come in and like.
Oh, so you're having them sell your
We're having them come run a meeting.
Got it.
And you really learn a lot about that person during that process.
Tell me more. What are some of the things that you've taken away from, or just generally like tips of interviewing?
I think it's basic mechanics too. Because one thing that I've learned that's still very true and consistent is, if you win a deal, and you go out for a dinner with your client after you win the deal. The things that they're like, oh, why'd you pick us, not the other guys? It's almost always basic stuff. You were responsive. You did what you said you would do when you said you would do it. You came prepared. You asked good questions. Like you genuinely wanted to partner with us, and came with that sort of like value add in mind. All of that sort of basic stuff, I think generally in the market is not being done. I still think there's a lot of bad sellers out there. And using tools and AI, the good sellers now can be even more dangerous and make more money than they've ever had an opportunity
It's going to be
before.
this bifurcation now.
Yeah, I really think that. I really think the people that know what they're doing and just run the mechanics and basics the right way, then you can use all the cool new sales tools that we didn't have when I was, coming up into my first AE job. All the stuff that you have now around call recordings, GPT, rocks, whatever you're using, like there's really cool stuff that you can have access to that's going to help you supercharge your territory planning, account planning, help you prep for discovery, help you prep content, help you prep, trap setting questions for your competitors, all that stuff. I think it's going to make the best sellers like so much better.
Yeah.
And they'll continue to win more business. But going back to your question around testing, I mean, it's a really hard thing to screen for. Backdoor references is always good. And then look, we're 5 days a week in office. I'm very upfront about the work culture that we have, which is it's intense. It's a high paced environment. I have dinner in the office more often than not. It's not for everyone. And we've lost candidates because of that. And I'm just transparent and honest with people when they're coming through our funnel about our expectations around responsiveness, around preparation, timeliness, and sometimes people are in, sometimes they're not. But I find being direct and honest about my expectations of like, here's the things that you can do that will just like keep you off if you're doing these things really well, like you'll be off my shit list and like run free. All I want to do is like help you close deals and grow your career and get better.
Right.
That's where I want to be spending my time. I don't want to be spending my time like, oh, you didn't send a follow-up within a business day.
A lot of the best sales leaders, I've heard this, that, at the end of it, they try to anti-sell them. They say, here's where the bodies are buried. Here are the skeletons, and see if that scares them. And some folks jump into it. They say, no, I knew that already, actually. I've done actually probably the best candidates say, no, I already asked people. I knew that. And that doesn't scare me. And then some, you probably at the finish line. And it's for the best. At the time, it probably like, throughout that, I was really liking this candidate. But in the long haul, that's going to be the best decision.
And we've lost more than one candidate.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's still, you still get it wrong occasionally. I also think with us, like our rate of growth has been so insane that people, salespeople always say they want to be buried in deals until you are. And then every rep that we've hired so far has been like, cut me, Nick.
996, baby.
Yeah.
That's what's funny. Everyone asks me, or like our firm, they'll be saying, is the 996 real? I'm like, I'll tell a salesperson, what do you care? It means you're getting a ton of deals. It's different if you're an engineer in 996. It's like, there's a lot to be built, but like the pros and cons of being in sales, one of the pros is that it's very much a variable compensation. The more you work, typically, the more you can make, and the faster career development. So
100%.
Yeah.
And you're going to get those at bats with us, and it's a ton of fun right now.
Tell me a little bit more. So like if folks are listening right now, let's say even in prep before they're interviewing with you, what are the things that culturally you're trying to build, or why should someone join you? Let's say they had an offer from either a company that sells the professional services space or another hot AI company. Like, what about you all would be the reason why they should join?
People ask me what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And the first thing I say is we're looking for company builders. Like everything we have is in a V0 or a V1 state. We have amazing people, we have amazing content, all this good stuff, but it's not good enough. Everything that we have now, whether that's an enablement, a piece of enablement content, a deck, our demo flow, our sales process, the way we run pilots, change management strategy, all this stuff I expect will get materially better over the next 3 months, materially better from the next 3 to 6 months, and so on. Like we're in an iterative state. We're blowing through company stages at a crazy rate. And we need people that are going to be okay in that level, in that pace. And I want people that want to come lean in and add. The biggest mistake I made hiring at Braze was I was starting the global accounts team, and we were starting to do big deals with these big, Fortune 100 firms, 7-8-figure deals, multi-year, super complex, multi-region, all this good stuff. It was super fun. And my colleague Tony and I were sort of like staffing out the team here in the US, and we were looking for these candidates who had done big deals before. And the only time we ever would make a mistake would be if someone was these big deal people from the big companies come in and they're like, well, who's doing my order forms? Or like, who's making this deck for me? And you're like, oh, fuck, we fucked this up.
Totally.
And so there's a level of leaning in and hustle that we have to have. And so company builders. The second thing is, I want someone, and this is like, seems like a corny HR thing, but this is a thing that I took from Braze, is like, we want culture add. I don't want people to come fit into the culture. I want them to come make it better. I want them to come help us take Legora to the next level, because we're gonna have to be a materially better and different company in 3 months, in 6 months, and 9 months, and so on. And so I want people that are gonna come buy in to the mission and the vision and bring their own sort of unique punch and flavor to that.
You have an example of this? It's funny. We were interviewing head of sales formerly at Plaid, and they're notorious for saying we hire for spikes, meaning we want people that are really good in a certain area, and it actually allows for what you're saying of, I don't know if diversity is the right word, but just people with different strengths and lifts off the team. Can you think of an example, whether it was at Braze or at Legora, where it's like, okay, I hired this person, they're obviously really good at sales, and this other person from a culture perspective was a former lawyer and really raised the bar of how hard we work. Like, do you have any examples of this?
Yeah, we do. We've hired a consultant at Legora who immediately came in and saw how chaotic some of our like internal documentation was.
And the way they present, so they're coming with like their deck, how they would structure a storyline and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was all in there, and we have a great pilot process. We have all this good stuff, but it wasn't structured in the right way that was like easily digestible for new joiners. And so we had this person come in and clean up all of our internal stuff and just make it like much cleaner, much easier to query, put it into a Notion page where you can use AI on top of it and like, get a summary of what you need to do at this stage, so that it would help us like enable our people better and faster. And they just did that on their own time. And we didn't ask them to really do it. They just sort of like saw it and fixed this thing. And you can't screen for that. It's very hard to screen for that kind of thing, but it made our sales enablement during onboarding just like so much better as we're bringing new people in of like where to go to find this like very structured content. So it took like unstructured set of content and just like cleaned it up, make it much more digestible, and it's made a huge impact on our onboarding.
Yeah.
And the stuff like that's, awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Glad to know that consultants make some of the best sellers.
Hey.
Former consultants that go into sales. I think we need more of them. So
we do.
And you're going to have more coming from the law side. Think about it. You have a ton of this supply, all these lawyers at these great schools that are going to come into a job market where they're not going to be. So you guys have a great opportunity to poach them and bring them on the sales team. No. So yeah.
But if you work at a big consulting company, reach out to me.
Yes. Yeah. The where I want to pivot in now is just like some things that we talked about that I wrote down that I think you have some interesting takes on.
Yeah.
MEDDICC. I think the one thing that like I sent you a post from, I think it was like Chris Orlob this week.
Yeah,
that agreed with what you were saying. It was, you hate when people call it a sales process. You've seen this a little bit more from like, I've never been a sales leader, but you probably have seen some sales leaders use that terminology. Tell us more about that and like why that kind of grinds your gears a little bit.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, I obviously, as a sales leader, I both love and hate LinkedIn. And the part I hate
just chronically online, all of us. It's just brutal. Like you have to be there. You just see all these posts and you're like, oh, I just so dumb. But they just have 50,000 followers.
Yeah.
They have this reach.
It's like, why do they have 40,000 likes? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible at LinkedIn, so whatever. MEDDICC is not a sales process. And this comes up to me a lot, especially if I'm, mentoring someone who's maybe a BDR or a more junior seller, and they're really leaning in. They're listening to podcasts, they're reading blogs, they're like, oh, like who should I follow on LinkedIn to like learn more about? And this happened to me actually at Braze, where someone was like, hey, because I was doing a deal review and we use MEDDICC for deal reviews, obviously, because that's what you use it for. And this younger person at Braze was like, oh no, like I was like reading, MEDDICC is like antiquated sales process. Like you shouldn't be using it as a process anymore, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, do you think you just like go to a meeting and start with metrics and then go ask who the economic buyer is and then ask who, hey, would you like to be my champion? And then like, who's the competition?
It's like asking someone to be your mentor, right?
Yeah. It's like, what are we doing?
Organically.
Yeah. It's like,
it's kind of cringe.
I've got my list of questions here from M to C, and I'm just going to go through like chronologically. To me, MEDDICC is still incredibly valuable sort of health check for your deal. It's a good way to look at where you have gaps. It's a good way to monitor your risk. And if you're using it appropriately, and we've got a great, tech stack now where our Gong actually will update like MEDDICC sort of automatically in Salesforce and in Gong at the same time. So you get sort of instant visibility during forecast reviews on like where you have gaps and where you need to follow up. So for me, it's like, okay, just because you don't have a clean MEDDICC scorecard doesn't mean you're going to lose the deal, but doesn't certainly mean you're going to win the deal if you have it all complete. Either way, it just shows you where you have risk. And for the next piece of the strategy, how are you going to address filling in those gaps as much as possible?
Do you ever feel like in the AI era right now, we're using that full checklist, or at least just like as a compass, a lot less? Because, and especially in professional services, you said it earlier, that these companies buy very differently. Have you seen that kind of go by the wayside a little bit of not checking off all the metrics to get the deal done?
Yeah, for sure. I think to a degree, because, and this is true for our vertical, but for a lot of these like vertical AI sort of plays, the markets are immature. So, going back to the Braze comp, when we would go into a customer, we knew their tech stack, we knew what they were using, we knew the pain points, and we also had really good metrics on if you use Braze in this way, as opposed to your current state, this is what we're going to be able to deliver from you from an output perspective, but also like basically this increase in clicks, this increase in revenue, and like efficiency, all this stuff. Because it was a mature market, because customer engagement was a new sort of label for this space, but all these tools had sort of existed in different areas, and we sort of brought a bunch of different messaging, different data tools into a singular place.
You guys used to eat our lunch with Marketing Cloud. I used to always lose deals to Braze. I wouldn't. I was more the core AE, but Braze was eating our lunch in the mid 2010s. Like, what are these guys doing differently, man?
Exactly. It's like, hey, when Salesforce says real time, they really mean 48 hours. When we say real time, we mean actually real time and things like that.
You're telling me when I used to say 360-degree view, they wouldn't just stop there and just buy the product? They would ask questions.
It's like 360 days to get from the website to the CRM. But because there was so much data and there was so much, it was such a developed space, we knew that if we did certain things a different way, we knew exactly the output we'd deliver operationally from a revenue perspective and all that stuff, and we had the metrics and proof points to back it up. I think what's exciting about vertical AI is you don't have, if you go look at the way we think about ROI, the way we think about business impact, we have data, we have metrics, but it's nowhere near as full as it will be in 12 months and 24 months. And that's true, I think, within like the coding vertical, within, there's a bunch of stuff happening within finance and within, other sort of vertical plays. And as we develop it over time, I think you'll have more consistency and more proof points. But since we're so early in all this stuff, you're very much selling on sort of bespoke points of view on specific projects. And that's why from a change management perspective, we take such a sort of use case led approach. So you asked earlier about like how we think about the differences in selling now versus previously. We do a ton of pilots at Braze. We did some pilots at Jacquard, but for the most part in my career, I haven't worked at companies that did mini pilots. Salesforce would never do a pilot. They're Salesforce. Why would they do a pilot?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's probably like you got to get Benioff approval to do a pilot at Salesforce. Adobe, the big companies, they don't do pilots. But smaller companies like us in emerging markets do them because you could even call them proof of value, because it's like, hey, this is what we do. And then within the legal space, it's like every practice area is so different. If you go show an M&A use case to a litigation attorney, I can tell you, because I made this mistake once, like they'll immediately tune you out, right? We have to be super prepared, not just on like the person and their background and like being able to, I saw you went to this school, blah, blah, blah. Like you have to have a pretty deep understanding of the type of cases or deals that they're working on, and then come with a perspective on how exactly you're going to help them in their practice. And then in a pilot setting, go prove that with some sort of benchmarking and metrics across like current state, future state with Legora. And so we're very much like creating this playbook now. And I think in, a longer time horizon, MEDDICC will be, more central, but because right now there's so much ambiguity in some of the outcomes, and we're figuring it out literally in the pilot. And then we do a great job of highlighting those impacts for them. But a lot of times you don't know exactly what it's going to be like. You
We're
have a
still in the early innings
hypothesis,
with all this,
but you're still figuring it out.
Yeah, interesting. What's the team structure like? Is it, hey, I have an AE that's the quarterback on this deal. Do you hire former lawyers?
We do, yeah. And
they really can speak to, so you might have some subject matter experts like product specialists. Then maybe you have an FDE in this too for it's like CS, but it's also like product deployment strategists.
Yeah,
like
you nailed it, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like 3-prong people in that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually 4. So we have the GTM on the front end doing all the stuff that you would expect. And then we don't have solutions consultants, we have legal engineers.
Got it.
So legal engineers.
Okay.
Yeah, great name.
Yeah, just blank engineer is like the hot, GTM engineer, legal engineer. Yeah.
Shout out to Clay.
Yeah.
Legal engineer is actually a really cool role. And we hire, honestly, some of the smartest people I've ever met from the best law firms who are AI forward. And they're typically, 3rd, 4th, 5th. We have actually just hired an 8th year associate who they come in with a practice area specialty, right? And the important thing for us is like if you're doing we just did a big rollout with Linklaters, and just like 30 offices and however many countries and all these different groups. Like you have to have a very broad bench of specialty, especially within the legal space, because again, how you configure Legora to work for the M&A group is going to be very different than litigation and so on. And so we have to have these people that have a unique perspective of how deals, cases, et cetera, work within big law, and then be able to take how things are working today and then translate that into a Legora environment and be able to speak the language of those folks. And obviously lawyers specialize in these particular areas. And so having experts on our side who can speak the language and then translate that into like an AI application is incredibly valuable. And they do a tremendous amount partnering with our GTMs. And then they predominantly run the pilots. When we do pilots, our legal engineers sort of like first big job is they run the pilots of all the firms that we're working with.
Interesting. Definitely unique to what you guys do versus some of the other applications that I'm seeing out there. So
yeah.
Other thing I'm really curious on, you've been in the SaaS game, now software sale game for a while. What are some of the go-to-market teams that you admire? You'd mentioned Braze. Maybe just quickly say what you admire about them, but then I want you to maybe give me another answer of another company and like get tactically, what about them is why you admire them?
Well, I love the Braze team, and I thought, competing with Salesforce, competing with Adobe, IPOing, I thought it was just, we never had great pipe coverage in terms of pipe to goal. Our win rates were super high. We had an awesome team. It was a great group.
What do you think was the reason why you had such high win rates? Like, what were 1 or 2 tactical things that you guys think that you did differently to have that?
I think we did a great job of discovery throughout the process. Because
what do you mean by like? Was it more of, hey, Salesforce Marketing Cloud is the big dog, so it's like we have to get out if we're going to win or lose this deal early on? Based on what they care about?
Well, more so, we were competing with like multiple tools at once.
Yeah.
So we're competing with Salesforce, but we were also competing with, individual messaging tools like SMS, push, email, webhooks, whatever. Also data platforms. And we're sort of collapsing a bunch of different things. And so through a sales process, we would talk to different key stakeholders from different teams. Like my favorite deal that I ever did was with the NBA. And we collapsed.
You're a big basketball guy.
Yeah, huge basketball fan.
That was like a dream.
Yeah, I was like, I'll come to your office as much as you want. I actually I would like bring them Chick-fil-A every meeting from like down the street in their office.
It's like, wait, we need a 4th demo? Yeah. Dude, of course
I'll be there. What time is it? But we collapsed like 4 or 5 contracts into one contract with Braze. So you're talking to you're talking to IT, you're talking to technology, you're talking to data, you're talking to marketing, you're talking to marketing ops. And so when I say we did a good job of discovery, what I mean by that is like we came with a point of view, but it was like very different depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And we were able to speak that language. So shout out to Braze, doing great.
Let's talk about Snowflake, because I just read Make It Snow, the book by Chris Degnan. So what about their sales team do you admire?
I actually just got to meet Chris Degnan for the first time.
Oh, nice.
He was like the coolest guy.
Tell him to answer my email. I sent him. I'm trying to get him on the Vibe Scaling podcast.
Well, look,
but
I mean,
hey, maybe he's making me work for it. He's like, all right, if I'm going to be on a sales podcast, I'm going to make him send like 4 thoughtful, non-AI slopped emails.
Well, me and my mom will listen to this.
Shoot Chris a ping and be like, dude, answer me. Anyway,
always looked up to Chris and what they did at Snowflake. And I think the reason why is because if you look at what Snowflake did as like a database company, it's like pretty unsexy. Not that exciting of a product, at least not like commercially.
It depends. We just threw we're throwing 2 selling to developers events with people who don't want to sell on the app layer. So it's funny you say that because there's plenty of people that only want to sell in.
Well, I guess APIs, there's a certain persona.
Yeah, everybody's different. Yeah.
But they were so good at industry specific place. Like I knew the guy that ran their media entertainment vertical.
That's where they started, right? It was like they had this unique, it was like gaming and like media where they're 2 verticals. They got really, because of the complexity of the databases that.
Yes. So they found their ICP. Like they knew the general ICP was, but then they would sort of like build these plays around industry specific like applications.
So are you saying in that, if I'm hearing you, it's actually they were super specific to their ICP, and because of that, they spoke to their buyer so well that it was what made them really effective?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
We see the same thing. It's like what we do in our advisory business, which is run by my partner, Jalen. A lot of that work is like trying to get the ICP more and more specific versus just we sell to developers.
Yeah.
And it's hard because then you can't like cut through the noise to them. So,
exactly. And they were also able to like multi-thread so effectively. Like anytime we partnered with them when I was at Braze, and anytime you go talk to one of their sellers, they would know 20 people in the account across, 6 different groups, all super senior, all like they had a plan for like what they cared about, their business objectives, all that stuff. I was just always super impressed with the team. I was always super impressed with their preparation and the ability to sort of tailor content in a meaningful way. I was really impressed.
Yeah, you should read the book. It's really interesting.
I haven't read it yet.
The first third of it, I think, is written by Chris, and it's specific on how he built out the team, what they did differently. Extremely unique. One of the reasons why I want to have him on is because a lot of what they did is so counterintuitive to what you would think to do. So one of those being, they hired sales before marketing. They would ask questions around, are you an objective or subjective thinker? And you would think that you would want somebody who's like, I'm an objective thinker. But they would test for, no, we wanted people to go with their gut. And in my mind, I'm like, wait, how does that work? Because I would want somebody who's like pretty logical, but like, no, I want somebody that just goes with their instinct. And I'm like, okay, I think we're semantics here. But it just was interesting how they like thought through this as a test. They literally would quiz people interviewing. But yeah, no, I think they're a great use case, and give that a read. And
yeah, definitely.
I think something else too. We were just talking about this, and before this, PLG versus enterprise.
Yeah,
and how PLG forces you to, or sales-led certainly force you to get good at discovery. And you had said that that's something that sounds like you're really proud of from your Braze days. And if I'm hearing it correctly, like we didn't have a ton of pipe coverage, so it's like you had to go kind of out there and get your own deals.
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, I think there's this like weird false tension between PLG and enterprise.
Well, you know what the tension is that top-down sellers are mad that PLG sellers get a ton of inbound and it's way easier. And it's not like right. It's not like you get, well, you could, selling larger deals, you get paid a lot more if you can close those. But yeah, anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think it's like, if you're a seller and your product can help you sell, like you want that, right? At a very basic level. So I think from that angle, it's like any good seller would want more help, not less help. And so I often hear from like VCs or other sort of executives like why do we even need salespeople? It's like what are they doing? Can we just be like I don't know, Atlassian or someone or Slack, right? And I always make
Slack and Atlassian are the darlings.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like Slack is like LeBron, like. Like sent from heaven, like meant to do this, like, once in a generation type thing. And certainly also they had a ton of salespeople.
Unfortunately, though, it's like LeBron tearing his ACL at 32 because they ended up getting their lunch eaten by teams, like pretty. But you're right. Yeah, then they hired they are the PLG darling. They did a great job in that enterprise motion, but almost like too late. It should be like
and then they pivoted to enterprise like later in the life cycle, right before they got acquired. But I just think the tension is like off, and why wouldn't you want more help, and want more signal if someone does a certain number of actions, and having more insights into buyer behavior, I think is all super positive. And so I think the world that we're moving into, especially with the speed of development, with like AI tooling, we're going to be able to have both. And certainly getting big deals done, you still need the human element. The change management stuff I just talked about, in particular with vertical AI, is like a huge focus for us, and I think where the wins and losses are going to come from. So from my side, it's like I want more information, more automation from the product. I think that's great, and I think if you overlay that with an amazing GTM team, like That's best case. I just think it makes for good like LinkedIn fodder to have like PLG or enterprise, or like why PLG people hate enterprise or vice versa. And I'm just like, what are we talking about? Like
PLG people think that enterprise sellers are too salesy, and
Yes.
and enterprise sellers think that PLG sellers have it too easy.
Yes.
That's
And
the
like I
difference.
said, there's a lot of bad salespeople out there, just like there's a lot of bad everything out
Totally.
there. And,
Yeah.
but just because there's bad salespeople out there doesn't mean that, we don't need a good go-to-market strategy.
Yeah. Well said. Last thing, I know you're a big basketball junkie.
Yeah.
Will my Knicks win the finals this year?
That's looking pretty
Give
good.
me the.
Is Brunson still hurt?
He's dropped 28 last night.
Okay,
He's back.
sorry,
He's always
sorry.
playing a little bit hurt. If you see the way he plays, he's like, he's on the floor more than any player in the league. And he's, he is the most beloved New York athlete that I've seen since Jeter, probably.
I was going to say.
He passes Judge. There's something about Judge that's not. Judge is great, and he's obviously the captain of the Yankees. I'm a Mets guy, so I'm kind of jealous. But anyway, but that beloved factor, there's only like once in a 15-year period of the players that happens with, and yeah.
Well, I can tell you that when I dropped my son off at first grade at PS 321 in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
there are so many freaking Jalen Brunson jerseys. Like,
bet.
he has got to be the most beloved athlete in first grade in New York by a mile and a half. That is definitely true. And I live near Barclays, so I like semi-adopted the Nets, which is kind of depressing. But but I mean, I love the Knicks team. I love the way you guys are looking this year. And yeah, I don't know who else is going to stop you in the East. That's for sure. I mean,
In the East, everybody's hurt, so luckily we'll walk in, and then we'll lose to OKC.
I was going to say,
that's probably who
I think it's a battle to end up.
But just get me there. My dad and I always say, we would say this about the Super Bowl with the Jets, like, this is kind of a loser comment, but that's our teams, right? Mets, Jets, is just get us to the Super Bowl, give us the 2-week hype. Who's having the party? Who's getting the wings? And then you get, like, that's kind of what I want. I just want, like, that. And then if we can get to a couple finals, then we keep losing. I think it'll set my bar differently. But right now, I just want to get there.
Are you guys going to trade Cat?
What? I mean, I hope not. I think that this year's team, you got to keep some consistency. It's a solid starting five. We acquired a bunch of bench guys this year. New coach. We got to the conference finals last year. I don't want to change anything. So, yeah.
Are you a Villanova fan now after all this?
No, we had some family that are Villanova fans. Nova Knicks is definitely.
Let's go.
Yeah, so. But in Jalen, I trust. I'm really pumped for this.
You should get Jalen on here.
Yeah,
I know he's got that podcast with John Hart.
If I can't even get Chris Degnan, I mean, slide into Jalen's DMs. He's no way he's answering me. But dude, this is great, man.
No, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. People can find you on LinkedIn, I assume. I keep asking people, like, where can people find said sales leader that I'm talking to? So, like, what's one thing actually, like, have you? And we'll do this quickly because we're running out of some time, but. Creative ways that somebody's gotten your attention, whether it's sales at Legora, like what are one or two things that stand out that you've admired?
I've gotten some pretty like the whole video on LinkedIn thing.
I was going to say, was it like a Loom video
little
or
Loom
something?
video.
Yeah.
Most of them are not good, but I did get one. I did get one recently that was actually like really good. So I think that's one recently. But otherwise, yeah, it's hard to break through.
As maybe the first person that's slid in with a "May I meet you," but if you're throwing that now, it's like you missed the joke.
Is Outbound dead?
I don't know. Right. So, dude, this is great,
Yeah.
and excited to see you guys continue to grow at Legora.
Thanks, Chris.
Awesome meeting
This
you.
was awesome. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you giving us a listen. Give us a subscribe, rating, review, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Hope you enjoy it.